How did a wedding joke turn into total silence? Why did a man they mocked as an outdated wallet suddenly become the person everyone feared to look at? They laughed at the table, until his mother recognized me and whispered one sentence that froze the room. Before we go any further, take a second to subscribe, hit the hype button, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? I stood near the corner of the banquet hall, champagne glass untouched in my hand. The venue was expensive. Crystal chandeliers, white linen everywhere, flowers I couldn't name but knew cost more than reasonable. My daughter had wanted elegant. She got elegant. I paid for elegant. The guests circulated in clusters, their voices rising and falling like waves. Laura moved through them in her white dress, radiant, distant. She hadn't looked at me in 20 minutes, maybe longer. I stopped counting after the ceremony. Oren held court near the bar, his voice carrying across the room even when he wasn't trying. My new son-in-law, 28 years old, sharp suit, sharper tongue. He worked in metals logistics, junior operations manager. I knew the company. Small firm, decent contracts, dependent on larger suppliers. He talked like he owned the industry. No, seriously. Oren's voice cut through the ambient noise. You should have seen the invoice. I'm like, Dad, you're really going to drop that much on flowers? Flowers that'll be gone in 3 days? Laughter rippled around him. 6, maybe 7 people. Young professionals, Oren's friends from work. They held their drinks with confidence, shoulders loose, phones half visible in pockets and purses. I stayed where I was. Invisible was fine. Invisible was safe. But hey, Oren continued, grinning wider now, when you've got an old payer covering everything, you don't ask questions, right? You just smile and say thank you. More laughter, louder this time. Old payer. The phrase hung in the air like smoke. Someone near the bar raised their glass in a mock toast. Oren caught my eye across the room. He didn't look away. Didn't flinch. He smiled. The kind of smile that said he knew I heard him and didn't care. I turned slightly, focusing on the champagne in my hand. The glass was cold. Condensation formed tiny beads near the rim. Honestly, though, Oren's voice didn't lower. It's kind of adorable. Like he still thinks writing checks makes him relevant. Dude's stuck in the 90s. Probably still uses a flip phone. I don't use a flip phone. I have an iPhone. Same model as his, actually, but I didn't correct him. Laura appeared beside Oren, her hand sliding into his. She laughed at something he said, something I didn't catch. She didn't glance my way, not once. A server passed by offering canapes. I took one without thinking, held it without eating. My throat felt tight. The laughter near the bar grew again. Someone pulled out a phone. I saw the screen angle toward me, saw Oren lean in, his grin widening. A photo. Maybe a video. The phone lowered after a few seconds, and the group huddled closer, heads bent together. I set my champagne down on a nearby table. My hand was steady. Across the room, someone else moved. A woman, mid-50s, elegant in a navy dress, Marianne Hale, Oren's mother. I recognized her from earlier. She'd been polite during the reception line, smiled warmly, said something about how beautiful the ceremony was. Now she stood near the edge of Oren's group, champagne in hand, listening. Her expression had been light, amused. Then it changed. She looked at me. Really looked. Not the casual glance of a wedding guest. Something sharper. Her eyes narrowed slightly, and I watched her face shift through some internal calculation. The smile disappeared. Her posture straightened. She stared for 3, maybe 4 seconds. And then she turned to the woman beside her and said something I couldn't hear. The other woman frowned, glanced at me, then back at Marianne. Marianne's gaze didn't leave me. Her lips pressed together. She took a slow sip of champagne, but her eyes stayed locked on mine. And in them, I saw something I hadn't seen all night. Recognition. Not of a father-in-law. Not of the man who paid for the flowers and the chandeliers and the 5-course meal. Something else. Her face had gone pale. Just slightly. Enough to notice if you were paying attention. I was paying attention. The kitchen in my house was dark when I got home. I didn't turn on the lights. Just stood there near the counter, jacket still on, tie loosened but not removed. The wedding had continued another 2 hours after that moment. Toasts, dancing, cake cutting. I stayed for all of it, smiled when appropriate, shook hands, told people it was a beautiful ceremony. No one asked if I was okay. No one asked anything. I poured water into a glass and drank it standing up. The house was too quiet. It had been quiet for years, but tonight the silence felt heavier. Deliberate. When had Lara stopped looking at me? Not tonight. Tonight was just confirmation. The erasure had been gradual. So gradual I didn't notice until it was complete. I remembered when she was 7. Small hands gripping a crayon, drawing careful circles on construction paper. She'd looked up at me with those serious eyes and said, "Daddy, is your job important?" "It helps people," I'd told her. "We make materials that build things, bridges, buildings, machines." "So you're important," she'd concluded, nodding to herself. I'd believed her. When had that changed? I set the glass down and walked to the living room. The furniture was the same as it had been when my wife was alive. 10 years now. A decade. Lara had been 16 when we lost her. Old enough to remember everything. Old enough to blame me for working too much, for not being home enough, for focusing on the wrong things. Maybe she was right. I sat in the armchair near the window. Streetlight filtered through the curtains, casting long shadows across the floor. Oren had entered the picture 3 years ago. Confident, loud, everything I wasn't. Lara had introduced him at a family dinner. "Oh, this is Oren. He's in logistics." I'd asked what kind of logistics. "Metals," he'd said. "Supply chain optimization, making sure the right materials get to the right place at the right time." I'd nodded, shaken his hand, said it sounded interesting. He'd smiled, the same smile from tonight. "It's the future, honestly. Old school manufacturing is fading out. It's all about smart distribution now." I hadn't argued. I never argued. Over the next 3 years, I watched Lara shift. Small changes, the way she talked about her life, the way she introduced me to her friends. "This is my dad. He works in metals. Industrial stuff." No details, no pride, just vague acknowledgement. When they got engaged, Oren had called me, not to ask permission, to inform me. "Hey, Kien, so I proposed to Lara. She said yes. We're thinking a spring wedding, nice venue, good food, the whole thing. I know you'll want to contribute." Contribute. Not help plan, not be involved, contribute. I'd said congratulations, asked if they needed anything. "Just the usual," he'd said. "You know, father of the bride stuff. Write some checks, show up in a tux, give a toast, standard package." Standard package. I'd written the checks, every single one. Venue deposit, catering, flowers, photography, bar service, band. Lara had sent me the invoices through email. No calls, no conversations, just PDFs with payment details and due dates. I never questioned them. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the photo gallery. Scrolled back through years of images. Lara's college graduation, her first apartment, holidays, birthdays. In every photo, the distance was visible if you knew to look. She stood beside me but never leaned in, smiled at the camera, not at me. When had I become the old payer? A memory surfaced, sharp and unwanted. 6 months ago. Lara and Oren had invited me to dinner, a nice restaurant downtown. I'd arrived early, waited at the table. When they showed up, Oren had brought 2 colleagues. "Hope you don't mind," he'd said. "These guys wanted to meet you." I'd shaken hands, made small talk. One of them had asked what I did. Before I could answer, Oren had jumped in. "Kien's retired, basically. Did some factory stuff back in the day. Now he just, hangs out. Right, Kien?" "Factory stuff." I'd nodded. Let it go. The dinner had continued. The colleagues had been polite but uninterested. The conversation had moved on. Lara hadn't corrected him. She'd just sipped her wine and changed the subject. I stood up from the armchair and walked to my office. Second door on the left. Small room with a desk and filing cabinets. I kept it organized, always had. Everything labeled, sorted, accessible. I opened the second drawer and pulled out a folder. Blue cover, reinforced binding. Inside were documents I hadn't looked at in months. Partnership agreements, ownership structures, board compositions. My name appeared in several places. Not prominently, not loudly, but there. I flipped through the pages slowly. Supply chain contracts, subsidiary relationships, reporting hierarchies. There was a name I recognized. Marianne Hale, Senior HR Director, listed under a subsidiary company. The subsidiary sourced materials from the main combine, the combine where I held a minority stake. Not controlling, not majority, but significant enough. I closed the folder and set it on the desk. My phone buzzed. A missed call notification, unknown number, corporate area code. I stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone down beside the folder. The house was still quiet. The hotel room had been another expense. Lara and Oren had wanted a honeymoon suite for the wedding night. Top floor, city view, king bed, champagne on ice. I'd paid for it without comment. They were probably there now, celebrating, laughing about the old payer who made it all possible. I sat on the edge of my own bed, still dressed, shoes still on. The bedside clock read 2:47 a.m. I should have been asleep, should have been tired, but my mind kept circling back to the banquet hall, to Oren's voice, to the laughter, to Marianne's face. That look. I replayed it frame by frame. The way her expression had shifted from amused to shocked to something colder. The way she'd stared. The way she'd turned to whisper. She knew. I pulled my phone out and checked the missed call again. Still no voicemail, just the number. I could Google it, find out which company, which department, but I already knew enough. I opened my calendar instead, scrolled forward through the next 2 weeks. There were 3 entries I'd added months ago. Routine items, a quarterly review meeting, a contract renewal discussion, a board attendance note. Nothing dramatic, nothing urgent. But the timing was interesting. I closed the calendar and opened my messages. Scrolled to Laura's name. The last text was from 4 days ago. Confirming final headcount is 140. Venue needs exact number by Wednesday. I'd replied, confirmed. That was it. That was our relationship now. Logistics, confirmations, transactional. I thought about texting her now, asking if she was okay, asking if she'd heard what Oren said, asking if she cared. I didn't. Instead, I stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, lights scattered across the darkness like stars. My reflection stared back at me from the glass. 52 years old, gray at the temples, quiet, forgettable, old payer. My jaw tightened. I returned to the bed and picked up my phone again. This time I didn't hesitate. I dialed the unknown number. It rang twice before someone answered. Mr. Marin. Male voice, professional, unsurprised. Thank you for returning my call. Who is this? David Strauss. I work in corporate communications for the Combine. We've been trying to reach you regarding a scheduling matter. What kind of scheduling matter? There's a board meeting next Tuesday. Your attendance has been requested. It's a priority session. Ownership structure review. I said nothing for 3 seconds. I'll be there. Excellent. We'll send the agenda Monday morning. There are some subsidiary relationships being formalized. Your signature will be required on several documents. Understood. Thank you, Mr. Marin. Have a good evening. The line went quiet. I set the phone down and stared at the ceiling. The plaster had hairline cracks spreading from the light fixture. I'd never noticed them before. Ownership structure review, subsidiary relationships. I thought about Marianne again, about where she worked, about the chain of command that connected her department to the materials her company sourced, about the contracts that made that sourcing possible, about the leverage that existed in those contracts. I'd never used it, never even thought about using it. I'd inherited my stake from a partnership my father built decades ago. It was just paperwork to me, just numbers and quarterly reports I barely read. But paperwork had weight. Numbers had consequences. I stood up and walked to the closet, pulled out a small leather bag and set it on the bed, packed methodically. 2 dress shirts, 1 tie, slacks, toiletries. I didn't need much. Tuesday was 4 days away. I had time. But something in my chest had shifted, some internal mechanism that had been dormant for years, maybe decades. Oren's voice echoed in my head again. Old payer covering everything. The laughter, the phones, Lara's silence. I zipped the bag closed and set it by the door. Then I returned to the desk and opened my laptop. Pulled up files I hadn't accessed in months. Contracts, agreements, operational frameworks. I read through them carefully, taking notes on a legal pad. Names, dates, dependencies. By the time I finished, the clock read 5:13 a.m. The sky outside had started to lighten. Gray dawn creeping over the city. I closed the laptop and leaned back in the chair. For the first time in years, I felt awake. The office was exactly as I'd left it. Clean desk, organized files, everything in its place. I'd worked from home mostly over the past few years, keeping my involvement minimal, attending meetings remotely when required. The Combine didn't need me on site. My role was structural, not operational. But now I stood in the small room off the main administrative building, door closed, folders spread across the desk in careful rows. I'd spent the last 2 days reading, rereading, cross-referencing. The contracts were dense, written in the careful language lawyers use to say everything and nothing at once. But the structure was clear once you understood the hierarchy. The Combine supplied raw materials to 6 regional contractors. Those contractors distributed to smaller firms. Those smaller firms included the one where Oren worked. The chain was long but unbroken. Remove one link, the whole thing collapsed. I wasn't interested in collapsing anything. I was interested in understanding exactly where everyone stood. Mary Ann Hale's name appeared in 3 separate documents. Her role as senior HR director placed her under the direct authority of the subsidiary's executive board. That board reported to the Combine's oversight committee. That committee answered to the ownership group where I held 18%. Not majority, not controlling, but 18% was enough to block certain decisions, enough to require consultation, enough to matter. I'd never mattered before because I'd never asked to. I picked up a printed agenda. It had arrived Monday morning as promised. 7 items, most routine, budget approvals, operational updates. The 6th item caught my attention. Subsidiary HR restructuring, personnel review, and reporting line adjustment. I read it 3 times. Then I read the attached memo. It outlined a consolidation plan. 3 HR directors would be reduced to 1. The decision would be based on performance metrics and operational efficiency. The final determination would require ownership approval. I set the memo down and pulled out my phone, opened social media, searched for Oren's name. His account was public. I scrolled through the recent posts. Photos from the wedding, videos, captions full of exclamation points and hashtags. One video in particular had been posted yesterday. Oren and 3 friends at a bar, drinks raised, his voice loud and cheerful. To married life, he shouted at the camera, and to not having to worry about bills anymore. Laughter, clinking glasses. The video had 43 likes, 12 comments, all congratulatory. I closed the app and set the phone down. My hands were steady. I organized the folders into 3 stacks: documents requiring signature, documents for reference, documents for legal review. I'd worked with the same attorney for 15 years, quiet man, competent, discreet. I'd called him yesterday, scheduled a meeting for tomorrow. There was a knock on the door. I looked up. Come in. A young woman entered, mid-20s, professional attire, tablet in hand. Mr. Marin, I'm Elena. Mr. Strauss asked me to confirm your attendance for tomorrow's meeting. I'll be there. Excellent. The session starts at 9 a.m. Boardroom C. Should last approximately 3 hours. Will you need any materials prepared? No, I have everything. She nodded and made a note on her tablet. Is there anything else you need? No, thank you. She left quietly, closing the door behind her. I returned to the folders. There was one more document I needed to review, a contract addendum from 6 months ago. Minor language adjustment. I'd signed it electronically without much thought. Now I read it carefully. The addendum clarified decision-making authority in cases where ownership consensus couldn't be reached. It established a hierarchy, a process, a mechanism for resolving disputes. It also established that minority stakeholders could request operational reviews if they believed subsidiary management was underperforming. I hadn't requested anything in 10 years, but the option existed. I closed the folder and checked the time. 4:30 p.m. The building would be emptying soon. People heading home, normal Tuesday evening. I gathered the folders into my briefcase and stood up, walked to the window. The parking lot below was half empty already. A few people crossed toward their cars, briefcases and bags in hand. Normal lives, normal concerns. My car was parked near the back, black sedan. 10 years old, but well-maintained. I'd never cared about vehicles. Transportation was transportation. I watched a man in a suit unlock a red sports car. He tossed his jacket in the back seat, climbed in, revved the engine unnecessarily. The sound echoed across the parking lot. Then he drove off, tires squealing slightly on the turn. Youth, confidence, noise. I left the office and walked down the hallway. The building was quiet. A few people nodded as I passed. I nodded back. Anonymous, forgettable. Outside, the air was cool. Spring evening, temperature dropping. I walked to my car without hurrying, set the briefcase on the passenger seat, started the engine, my phone buzzed. Text message. Lara. Thanks again for everything. The wedding was perfect. I stared at the words, read them twice. Then I typed a response. You're welcome. I hope you're happy. I hit send and set the phone down. Then I drove home through evening traffic, windows up, radio off, mind already on tomorrow. The airport lounge was nearly empty. Early morning, Tuesday. Business travelers scattered across leather chairs, laptops open, phones pressed to ears. I sat near the window with coffee and a folder. The flight to the regional office wasn't for another hour. I'd arrived early, habit. The coffee was mediocre. Airport standard, bitter undertone, too hot, foam already dissolving into gray residue along the rim. I drank it anyway. Caffeine was caffeine. Outside the window, planes taxied slowly across wet tarmac. It had rained overnight. The runways gleamed under pale morning light, reflecting clouds that hung low and heavy. A cargo jet pushed back from its gate, reverse thrusters whining. The sound was muffled through the glass, but still audible. Constant background noise of departure and arrival. The documents inside the folder were already signed. I'd met with my attorney yesterday afternoon. He'd reviewed everything twice, asked careful questions, made notes in the margins with a mechanical pencil that clicked after every sentence. "You understand what this means?" he'd asked, looking at me over his reading glasses. "Yes." "And you're certain?" "Yes." He'd removed his glasses slowly, folded them, set them on the desk between us. "Kien, I've known you for 15 years. You've never asked for anything like this. You've never used your position for leverage. Are you sure you want to start now?" "I'm not starting anything. I'm ending something." He'd studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. "Then I'll file these this afternoon. Everything will be official by tonight." We'd shaken hands. I'd left his office feeling nothing in particular. No anger, no satisfaction. Just clarity. The kind of clarity that comes when you finally understand exactly what needs to be done. Now I sipped the terrible coffee and watched planes taxi outside. The morning was gray, overcast. Rain threatening, but not falling. Typical spring weather, unpredictable, temporary. My phone buzzed, email notification. I opened it. The board meeting agenda updated. One addition at the bottom. Ownership Representative Introduction, K. Marin. I read it twice. Then closed the email and set the phone down. Across the lounge, a television played news on mute. Stock prices scrolling across the bottom. Weather forecasts. A politician speaking at a podium. Face serious, hands gesturing. I wasn't paying attention. My mind was already at the meeting, already in the boardroom, already seeing faces I'd only known from documents and reports. A woman 2 seats away was arguing with someone on her phone, a voice rising incrementally with each sentence. "I told you I'd be back Thursday. Thursday. No, I can't change it. The meeting is mandatory. I don't care what Trevor said." She hung up, slumped in her chair, rubbed her temples. I understood that exhaustion, the weight of other people's expectations, the constant negotiation between what you need to do and what others demand you do. I finished the coffee, set the empty cup on the small table beside my chair, checked the time on my phone, 45 minutes until boarding. I pulled out the folder again, opened it, reread the documents I'd already memorized, partnership agreements, ownership structures, board compositions. The words were familiar now, almost comfortable. Legal language that once seemed impenetrable now made perfect sense. My name appeared in several places. Not prominently, not loudly, but there. Small font, footnote references, appendix citations, easy to miss if you weren't looking. But if you were looking, if you understood what you were reading, then the weight was obvious. I flipped through the pages slowly. Supply chain contracts, subsidiary relationships, reporting hierarchies. The combine connected to 6 contractors. Those contractors connected to dozens of smaller firms. Those firms connected to hundreds of individual employees. A web, complex, interdependent, fragile. Remove one connection and tension redistributes, sometimes harmlessly, sometimes catastrophically. One name stood out, Marianne Hale, Senior HR Director, listed under a subsidiary supplying the main combine. The combine where I owned 18%, not controlling, not majority, but enough to matter, enough to act. I closed the folder and set it beside me. Boarding was announced. Garbled, Gate C7, Flight 2847. I joined the line. Mostly business travelers, a few families. Everyone looked exhausted. Pre-dawn flights did that. The regional jet was half full. I took a window seat near the back. Briefcase overhead. Seat beside me empty. A small mercy. The safety briefing played out mechanically. No one listened. Engines rumbled. Pushback, taxi. 2 planes lifted off before us. Then acceleration, pressure, weightlessness. The city shrinking below. 90 minutes passed. I read without absorbing. A thriller. Corporate espionage, betrayal, revenge. The irony registered and vanished. Clouds stretched endlessly. White and gray layers. Occasional gaps revealed fields and towns, indistinguishable from this height. The captain announced descent. The plane banked. Below, warehouses, factories, shipping yards. The unseen machinery that fed everything else. We landed smoothly. Before the seatbelt sign went dark, people stood, grabbing bags, always rushing toward whatever came next. I waited until the aisle cleared, then collected my briefcase and exited. The terminal was small, regional, 10 gates total. I walked through it quickly. No checked luggage, no delays. A car was waiting outside. Black sedan, professional driver. He held a sign with my name. Mr. Marin? Yes. I'll take you to the venue. The venue. Not the office, not the combine. The venue. Interesting word choice. I climbed into the back seat. The interior smelled like leather and air freshener. Something pine-scented. Artificial. The driver pulled away from the curb smoothly. We drove through industrial districts, warehouses, factories, loading docks, trucks everywhere, semi-trailers backing into bays, forklifts moving pallets. This was the part of the region most people didn't see, the part that made everything else possible. First time at this location? The driver asked, glancing at me in the rearview mirror. Yes. It's a nice facility. They renovated last year. Conference rooms, full catering, video conferencing capabilities. Very professional. I nodded, but didn't respond. Didn't encourage further conversation. He took the hint. We drove in silence after that. 10 minutes, 15. The industrial zones gave way to office parks. Low buildings, tinted windows, manicured lawns that looked expensive to maintain. We arrived 20 minutes after leaving the airport. The building was modern, glass and steel, set back from the road with landscaped grounds. Young trees planted in neat rows, mulch beds without weeds. Someone spent money on appearances here. The driver pulled up to the entrance. They're expecting you inside. Main reception desk. Thank you. I stepped out, briefcase in hand. The morning air was cooler here than at home. Different climate, different altitude. My breath didn't quite fog, but almost. The building's front doors were automatic, sliding open as I approached. Inside, the reception area was bright and clean. Chrome fixtures, polished floors that reflected overhead lights, abstract art on the walls, expensive but meaningless. A woman behind the desk looked up and smiled. Professional, practiced. Good morning. Can I help you? Kien Marin. I'm here for the board meeting. Her expression shifted slightly. Professional mask slipping just enough to show surprise. Recognition? She'd been told to expect me, but maybe didn't believe it would actually happen. Of course, Mr. Marin. They're expecting you. Boardroom C, 3rd floor. Elevators are on your left. Thank you. I walked to the elevators, pressed the button, waited. My reflection stared back at me from the polished metal doors. 52 years old, gray at the temples, calm expression, nothing remarkable, nothing threatening. Old payer. The doors opened. Empty car. I stepped inside and pressed 3. The doors closed. The elevator rose smoothly. No sensation of movement, just the floor numbers lighting up in sequence. When the doors opened again, I was facing a long hallway. Thick carpet, recessed lighting, photographs of industrial operations on the walls, molten metal pouring, machinery in motion, workers in hard hats, all carefully composed, all designed to convey strength and capability. At the end of the hall, double doors marked Boardroom C. I walked toward them without hurrying. The carpet absorbed sound. My footsteps were silent. Halfway down the hall, I heard voices, coming from an open door on the left. Break room, maybe. Coffee station. Did you see the agenda update? Yeah, who's Marin? Some old partner. Inherited a stake decades ago. Never shows up. So why now? No idea. Probably routine. Sign some papers, leave. I kept walking. Near the end of the hall, someone was coming from the opposite direction. A woman, mid-50s, navy dress suit, carrying a leather portfolio. She looked up and froze mid-step. Marianne Hale. Her face went pale. Actually pale. Color draining in real time like water from a sink. We stopped 3 feet apart. Mr. Marin, she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. The portfolio trembled slightly. Mrs. Hale. Her mouth opened, closed. She looked at the boardroom doors, then back at me. Calculation happening behind her eyes. Connecting dots. Understanding arriving in stages. You're here for the meeting. I am, she swallowed. I didn't realize, I saw the agenda update, but I didn't connect. It's fine. Her hands tightened on the portfolio, knuckles white. Does Oren know? No. She closed her eyes briefly. When she opened them, they were sharp, calculating, defensive. This is about the wedding. This is about a board meeting. Mr. Marin, I'm not here to discuss personal matters, Mrs. Hale. I'm here because my attendance was requested, if you'll excuse me. I stepped past her and reached for the door handle. Wait. I paused, but didn't turn around. He's young, she said quietly. He doesn't understand how things work. He meant exactly what he said. He meant it when he called me irrelevant. He meant it when he posted videos online. He meant it when he turned me into entertainment for his friends. Silence behind me. And you meant it when you said nothing, when you laughed along, when you treated me like a wallet at your son's disposal. I didn't? Yes, you did. I opened the door and walked into the boardroom. The room was full. 12 people seated around a long mahogany table, suits, ties, professional expressions, laptops open, tablets glowing, coffee cups half empty. The meeting had that pre-start energy. Low conversations, last-minute document reviews, people settling in. Conversation stopped when I entered. Heads turned in sequence like dominoes falling. David Strauss stood at the head of the table. Mid-40s, gray suit, calm demeanor, wire-rimmed glasses, neat haircut. Everything about him suggested competence and control. He'd been the one to call me. Now he smiled and gestured to an empty chair. Mr. Marin, thank you for joining us. Please, have a seat. The chair was positioned midway down the table. Right side, good sightline to everyone. Strategic placement. I walked to it, set my briefcase down carefully, sat. The chair was expensive, ergonomic, leather that smelled new. Marianne entered behind me. She moved to a seat near the middle of the table, diagonal from me. Her face was composed now, professional mask back in place, but her hands trembled slightly as she set down her portfolio. She didn't look at me, focused on arranging her materials, pen aligned with notepad, tablet angled just so. Strauss cleared his throat. Let's begin. First item on the agenda. The meeting proceeded through routine matters, budget approvals for the next quarter, operational updates from 3 facilities, minor contract renewals with existing vendors, safety protocol adjustments following an incident at the southern plant. I listened without comment, made notes occasionally on a legal pad I'd brought. My presence drew glances, but no one asked questions. A few people introduced themselves during natural pauses. Handshakes across the table, names I'd recognize from reports. Tom Bradley, Operations Oversight. Jennifer Chen, Financial. Marcus Duvall, Legal Counsel. I nodded to each, shook hands, said nothing beyond acknowledging introductions. 20 minutes in, Strauss reached the 6th item. He paused before reading it, glanced around the table, making sure everyone was paying attention. Subsidiary HR restructuring, he read aloud. As outlined in the pre-meeting memo, we're consolidating 3 director positions into 1. This decision requires ownership approval. The proposed consolidation affects personnel across Feldman Industrial, Grant Materials, and Howell Distribution. He looked up from his tablet. Before we proceed with the vote, I'd like to introduce someone many of you may not have met in person. He looked directly at me. Kien Marin holds an 18% stake in this combine. He's been a minority partner for over 20 years, primarily maintaining a passive role. However, recent documentation has formalized his position as an active voting member of the ownership committee. His input on this restructuring is not only welcome, but required. Silence around the table. Several people shifted in their seats. Exchanged glances. Marianne stared at her hands. Her jaw was tight. Mr. Marin, Strauss continued, would you like to review the personnel files before we vote? I've already reviewed them. And do you have any concerns regarding the proposed consolidation? I opened my briefcase and removed a single folder. Blue cover, same one from my home office. I set it on the table carefully, then opened it to a marked page. I have concerns about operational efficiency in one of the subsidiary departments, specifically the HR division under Director Hale's oversight. Marianne's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. Can you elaborate? Strauss asked. His tone was neutral. Careful. The division has failed to maintain adequate performance metrics over the past 18 months. Employee retention has dropped 11%. Onboarding timelines have increased by 23 days on average. Exit interview data suggests management disconnect and inadequate response to systemic issues. I slid the folder across the table to Strauss. He caught it smoothly, opened it, read silently. His expression didn't change, but his jaw tightened slightly. He flipped through 3 pages, then looked up. These are detailed findings, he said carefully. They're accurate findings. I had them compiled last week by an independent consultant, cross-referenced with your internal quarterly reports. Someone down the table leaned forward. Jennifer Chen. Mr. Marin, with respect, these metrics could be explained by market conditions. The entire region has seen retention challenges. Regional retention is down 4%, This division is down 11. That's a 7-point variance. Statistically significant. She sat back, said nothing. Marianne's voice cut through the room. Tight, controlled, barely. Mr. Marin, if I may, you may not. I didn't raise my voice, didn't change tone, just stated fact. This is an ownership review. Your input has already been documented in the quarterly reports. Those reports show consistent underperformance relative to comparable divisions. Her face flushed red. With all due respect, I've been in this position for 8 years. I've built relationships, established protocols, improved cross-departmental communication, and the metrics have declined steadily over the past 2 years, particularly in the division that supplies materials to mid-tier logistics firms. I pulled out another sheet, placed it on the table, facing the group. This is a list of companies dependent on your division's procurement efficiency. The third name on that list is Advanced Logistics. Current employee roster includes 1 junior operations manager, Oren. The room went completely silent. No shuffling papers, no shifting chairs, nothing. Marianne's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Her face had gone from red to white in seconds. I continued, voice level and calm. I'm not suggesting personal bias affected professional performance. I'm stating that the metrics speak for themselves. This division requires restructuring. That restructuring should include leadership replacement to ensure optimal operational efficiency going forward. Strauss looked down at the documents, then at Marianne, then at me. Mr. Marin, this is comprehensive. It's necessary. And you're formally requesting Director Hale's removal. I'm requesting what the data supports. If the ownership committee agrees that performance has been inadequate based on objective metrics, then yes, removal and replacement with a director who can meet regional standards. Marianne stood abruptly, her chair scraped backward. This is retaliation. You're upset about a wedding comment, and you're using your position to... Sit down, Mrs. Hale. The command came from Strauss, not me. His voice was sharp, final, authority that couldn't be questioned. Marianne sat. Her hands were shaking visibly now. The portfolio fell from her lap. Papers scattered. She didn't pick them up. Strauss looked around the table. Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Marin regarding this assessment? Tom Bradley raised a hand slightly. The consultant who compiled this report. Can we verify their credentials? Harper Analytics. 20 years in industrial HR assessment. Credentials are in the appendix. Page 7. Strauss flipped to page 7, scanned, nodded. Harper is reputable. I've seen their work before. No one else spoke. Then we'll proceed to a vote, Strauss said. All in favor of accepting Mr. Marin's restructuring recommendation and initiating leadership replacement in the Feldman HR division? Hands rose around the table. 1, 2, 5, 8, 11. All except Marianne. Strauss nodded once. Motion carries. Director Hale will receive formal notice by end of day. Standard severance. Item 6 concluded. He moved straight to item 7, facility maintenance. Screens changed. Attention shifted. The meeting rolled on as if nothing had happened. Marianne sat frozen, staring ahead. Paper white, eyes red but dry. Shock, the kind that comes when reality breaks what you believed. The meeting dragged on another 40 minutes. I voted on 2 routine items. Both passed unanimously. When Strauss adjourned, people stood, gathered papers, avoided Marianne's eyes. She didn't move as the room emptied. I closed my briefcase and headed for the door. Mr. Marin. I turned. Marianne had stood. He'll find out, she said quietly. Oren. He'll know you did this. Yes. He'll tell Lara. Probably. And you don't care. I care that actions have consequences. What he tells her is his choice. What she believes is hers. She's your daughter. She stopped being my daughter when I became a wallet, when she stood by while he mocked me, when she took my money and erased me. You're ruining lives over a wedding comment. No, I'm answering years of disrespect with one business decision. The fallout is incidental. Her face broke. You're cruel. I'm fair. Know the difference. I walked out. The hallway was empty. Everyone had moved on. I went to the elevators alone. Behind me, a muffled sound, maybe a sob, maybe something breaking. I pressed the button. Wait! Hold the elevator. The doors closed. I descended alone. The car was waiting outside. Same driver, same black sedan. He opened the door as I approached. Back to the airport, Mr. Marin. No, take me to the wedding venue from last weekend. He hesitated. The banquet hall? Yes. May I ask why? No? He nodded and closed my door. We pulled away from the building. The drive took 40 minutes. I spent it staring out the window, watching the city pass. Industrial zones gave way to commercial districts, then residential areas, then the upscale neighborhood where the venue sat like a monument to expensive taste. The building had cost me $38,000 for one evening. Flowers another 6, photography 5, the band 8, catering 22 per head for 140 guests. I'd written every check without question, without negotiation, just signed and sent. Old payer. We pulled into the parking lot. The building looked different in daylight, smaller somehow, less impressive. The stone facade that had seemed elegant under evening lights now just looked expensive and empty. Should I wait? The driver asked. Yes. I climbed out and walked to the entrance. The doors were locked. A sign read, "Closed for private event setup." But I could see movement inside through the glass. Staff preparing for something, another wedding, another celebration, another family spending money they may or may not have to create memories they may or may not keep. I knocked. A young man in staff uniform appeared. He unlocked the door and opened it slightly. Can I help you? I was here Saturday. My daughter's wedding. I need to speak with the manager. I'm not sure if... Tell them Kien is here. Tell them I paid for Saturday's event. Tell them I need 5 minutes. He hesitated, then nodded. Wait here. The door closed. I stood in the parking lot, hands in my pockets. The air was warmer than yesterday. Spring sun breaking through clouds. Somewhere nearby, a bird was singing. Repetitive 3-note pattern, over and over. I counted to 73 before the door opened again. A woman in business attire appeared. Mid-30s, professional smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Mr. Marin, I'm Tracy, the event coordinator. Is there something wrong with your invoice? No, I want to book the hall. Her smile brightened, genuine now. Wonderful. What kind of event? A presentation, corporate gathering. I need the main ballroom for Saturday evening. This Saturday? Yes. She pulled out a tablet, scrolled through something. Her manicured nail tapped against the screen. We do have availability, but it's short notice. The rental fee for a weekend evening? I'll pay double your standard rate. I need the room from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. No catering, no bar service. Just the space and your audio-visual system. She blinked. Her finger paused mid-scroll. That's certainly doable. May I ask what kind of presentation? Family matter, private. I see. And how many guests? Approximately 60, maybe fewer. I'll have an exact count by Thursday. She made notes on her tablet, typing quickly. And the AV requirements? Large screen, sound system, wireless presentation capability. I'll need the podium positioned center stage. Lighting focus there, house lights at 50%. We have all of that. Mr. Marin, if you don't mind my asking, is this related to your daughter's wedding? Because if there's an issue with the service we provided... No issue. This is separate. All right then. I'll draw up a contract. We'll need a deposit by tomorrow. I'll wire the full amount tonight. Her eyebrows rose. The full amount? That's not necessary. It's necessary for me. I want confirmed booking. No possibility of cancellation or schedule conflict. She nodded slowly, studying my face, so trying to read something there. Understood. I'll email you the contract within the hour. Thank you. I turned and walked back to the car. The driver was leaning against the hood, scrolling through his phone. He straightened when he saw me, slipping the phone into his pocket. Airport now? Yes. We drove in silence. I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. Scrolled to a name I hadn't called in years. Gregory Marks, old colleague from the early days of the Combine. He'd moved into event planning after retiring from operations, specialized in corporate functions, galas, fundraisers, product launches. We'd stayed in touch loosely. Holiday cards, occasional emails asking how retirement was treating him. I pressed call. He answered on the third ring. Kien, is that really you? Yes, I need a favor. After 15 years of silence, you need a favor? He laughed. This better be good. I need a guest list. Specific people. I need them invited to an event Saturday evening. I need the invitations to look professional. Formal. Urgent. What kind of event? An announcement. Corporate nature. They need to think it's mandatory. Silence on the line. Then, Kien, what are you doing? Something necessary. Can you help? Another pause. I could hear him breathing. Considering. Send me the list. I'll handle it. Thank you. Kien? Yes? Whatever this is, be careful. I ended the call. The airport appeared ahead. The driver pulled up to departures. I handed him cash through the window. More than necessary. He looked at the bills and then at me. Sir, this is too much. Keep it. Are you sure? I'm sure. Thank you for your discretion today. He nodded slowly. Thank you. Safe travels, Mr. Marin. I walked into the terminal, checked in for my flight, moved through security. The gate area was crowded, families clustered near charging stations. Business travelers worked on laptops balanced on their knees. A child was crying somewhere, high-pitched wails echoing off the tile floors, everyone moving with purpose or exhaustion or both. I sat near the window and opened my laptop, started typing names into an email. Oren Hale, Laura Marin Hale, Marianne Hale, Oren's colleagues from the wedding, the ones who'd laughed and raised their glasses, Jason, Trevor, Melissa, the friends who'd pulled out phones to record, Laura's college roommates who'd smiled politely but never asked about me, extended family members who'd attended out of obligation, cousins, aunts, uncles, people who'd congratulated Laura on her beautiful wedding and never once acknowledged who paid for it. 63 names total. I attached a formal invitation template, spent 20 minutes adjusting the wording until it struck the right tone, professional but personal, urgent but not alarming. You are cordially invited to a private presentation regarding the Marin family and recent developments affecting all attendees. Your attendance is respectfully required. Saturday, 7 p.m., same venue as the recent wedding celebration. Formal attire requested. RSVP not required. Your presence is expected. I sent the list to Gregory with detailed instructions. The invitations needed to arrive tomorrow. Physical mail and email both. They needed to look official, corporate letterhead, embossed logo, the kind of invitation you don't ignore. Then I opened a new document and began writing what I would say. Not a speech, not a script, just bullet points, facts, timeline, consequences, evidence. I worked methodically, building the structure piece by piece. My flight boarded. I closed the laptop and joined the line, found my seat, stowed my bag. The plane pushed back from the gate, taxied to the runway, lifted into gray sky. I looked out the window at the city falling away below. The Combine's industrial complex was visible from this altitude, smokestacks, warehouses, the infrastructure that made everything else possible. I felt nothing but calm. And something else, something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. Thursday morning, my phone started ringing. The first call was Lara. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail. Dad, what is this invitation? What presentation? Why didn't you tell me you were planning something? Call me back. I deleted it. The second call was Oren. No voicemail, just a missed call notification. The third was Lara again. This time the message was sharper. Dad, seriously, people are asking me questions I can't answer. What are you doing? This is weird. Call me. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop. The fourth call came while I was reviewing my presentation notes. Unknown number. I let it ring. The fifth was Marianne Hale. She left a voicemail. Her voice was tight, controlled. Mr. Marin, I received your invitation. I'm not sure what you're planning, but I strongly advise you to reconsider. Whatever point you're trying to make, this isn't the way. Please call me. I deleted that too. By noon, I had 17 missed calls. 8 from Laura, 3 from Oren, 2 from Marianne, 4 from numbers I didn't recognize, extended family probably, people wondering what was happening. I turned my phone to silent and set it face down on the table. Gregory called the house line at 2 p.m. I answered. They're panicking, he said without preamble. I've gotten 6 calls already asking what this is about. What did you tell these people? Nothing. Kien, they think it's some kind of intervention or lawsuit announcement. One woman asked if you were terminally ill. Let them think whatever they want. Jesus. All right. The invitations were delivered this morning. Physical copies went out by courier. Emails sent simultaneously. I used the corporate template you specified. Looks very official, very serious. Good. 63 confirmations so far. Everyone's coming. Nobody wants to miss whatever this is. Thank you, Gregory. You're really not going to tell me what you're planning? You'll see Saturday. He sighed. I hope you know what you're doing. I do. After he hung up, I returned to my laptop. Spent 3 hours refining the presentation, adding slides, checking facts, verifying dates. Everything needed to be accurate, precise, unambiguous. I created a timeline, visual representation of the past 3 years, Key events marked clearly: the dinner where Oren called me retired, the wedding planning where I became a payment processor, the reception where I became a joke. I added financial documentation, redacted where necessary but clear enough. Every invoice, every payment, every check written without complaint or acknowledgement. Then I added the corporate structure, the org charts, the supply chain dependencies, the reporting hierarchies, Marianne's position, Oren's company, the connections between them all. Finally, I added the board meeting minutes, the vote, the restructuring decision, the employment termination effective Monday, 47 slides total. I saved the presentation 3 times, backed it up to cloud storage, downloaded it to a USB drive as backup. My phone buzzed constantly on the table. I ignored it. Friday morning, the calls intensified. Laura showed up at my house at 8 a.m. I saw her car pull into the driveway through the kitchen window, heard her footsteps on the front walk. The doorbell rang. I didn't answer. She rang again, knocked. Dad, I know you're home. Your car is here. Please open the door. I sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, waited. Dad, this is ridiculous. Just tell me what's going on. Why are you doing this? Silence. Fine. I'll see you tomorrow night. But this better be important. Her footsteps retreated. The car door slammed. Engine started. She drove away. I finished my coffee. Friday afternoon, I drove to the venue, brought the USB drive and my laptop. Tracy met me in the empty ballroom. Mr. Marin, I wasn't expecting you today. I need to test the AV system, make sure everything works. Of course, let me get our tech manager. 20 minutes later, I had the presentation loaded and displaying on the massive screen. Crystal clear, every slide sharp and readable from the back of the room. The tech manager, a young man named Peter, walked me through the remote controls. Pretty straightforward. This button advances slides. This one goes back. Volume controls here. If you need to pause, I won't need to pause. Right, okay, anything else? The podium light. I want it bright. I want everyone in this room looking at me when I speak. He adjusted something on a control panel. The podium area lit up like a stage. Dramatic. Impossible to ignore. Like that? Perfect. I ran through the entire presentation once. 47 slides. Checked timing, made minor adjustments to transition speeds. Tracy appeared at the door. Mr. Marin, everything satisfactory? Yes. I'll arrive tomorrow at 5:30. I want the room sealed from 5:30 to 6. Nobody enters early. Understood. We'll have staff posted at the doors. And after 6, everyone who enters should be directed to seats immediately. No mingling in the lobby. We can do that. Thank you. I left the venue and drove home. The sun was setting, orange and red streaking across the sky. Beautiful, probably. I didn't care about beauty. I cared about Saturday. Friday night, I didn't sleep. Just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, going through the presentation mentally, anticipating questions, preparing responses. The house was silent around me, too silent, like it was holding its breath. Saturday morning, I ate breakfast, showered, dressed in my best suit, navy blue, tailored, expensive. I'd bought it 5 years ago for a funeral. Worn it twice since. It still fit perfectly. I left the house at 4 p.m., arrived at the venue at 4:45. Tracy was waiting. All set, Mr. Marin. The system is ready. Staff is briefed. Doors will open at 6. Good. I walked into the empty ballroom. Same space where Laura had celebrated a week ago. Same chairs, same tables, but arranged differently now. Theater style. All facing forward, all facing the screen, all facing the podium where I would stand. I tested the presentation one final time. Every slide loaded correctly, every transition smooth. Then I stood at the podium and waited. 5:30. The doors sealed. 6 p.m. The doors opened. People began arriving. They entered in clusters. Small groups, whispering to each other, confusion evident on every face. I watched from the side door, hidden in shadow, as they filed in and took seats. Laura and Oren arrived first. She wore a blue dress, heels, makeup carefully applied. He wore a suit, but no tie, top button undone. Casual confidence. They scanned the room, looking for me. What is this? Laura asked Tracy, who stood near the entrance. Please take a seat. The presentation will begin shortly. But where's my dad? Please take a seat, ma'am. Marianne Hale entered alone. Her face was pale, tight. She spotted Oren and Laura, moved to sit near them, then thought better of it. Chose a seat 3 rows back instead. The wedding guests followed. Jason and Trevor, Oren's colleagues, laughing nervously about something. Melissa, who'd recorded video at the reception. Laura's college friends, extended family members I barely knew. By 6:15, 58 people filled the room. 5 seats remained empty. I stepped out of the shadows and walked to the podium. The room went silent. Every head turned, every eye locked on me. I connected my laptop to the system. The screen behind me lit up with the first slide. Simple text. 3 words. The old payer. Oren's mouth opened slightly. Closed. Laura's face flushed red. I pressed the remote. The slide changed. Good evening. Thank you for attending. I know this is unusual. I appreciate your punctuality. What you're about to see is important. It concerns all of you, some more than others. My voice was calm, level. The microphone amplified it across the room. No one moved, no one spoke. Next slide, a photograph, the wedding reception, Oren at the bar, surrounded by friends, mid-laugh. The image was pulled from social media, posted by Jason, visible on his public profile. 1 week ago, at my daughter's wedding, several comments were made. Comments about my relevance, my usefulness, my role as what was called an old payer. I looked directly at Oren. He stared back, jaw tight. I funded that wedding entirely. Venue rental, catering, photography, flowers, band, bar service, decorations. Total cost, $93,412. Next slide, a spreadsheet. Every invoice, every payment, every check, names, dates, amounts, all there. Gasps rippled through the room. Laura's eyes went wide. I never asked for acknowledgement, never demanded gratitude. I simply paid, because that's what fathers do, or what I thought they did. Next slide, a video clip, silent but clear. Oren at the bar, gesturing toward me, mouth forming the words, old payer. His friends laughing, phones appearing. The video played for 10 seconds, then froze on Oren's grinning face. This video was posted online. It received 43 likes, 12 encouraging comments. It has been viewed 207 times as of this morning. The room was suffocating now. People shifted in seats, avoided looking at each other. Oren's face had gone white. I am not here to shame anyone. I am here to provide context. Next slide. Corporate logo, the metallurgical combine. I hold an 18% ownership stake in this company. I have held it for 23 years. It is not a ceremonial position. It is not honorary. It carries voting rights, decision-making authority, operational influence. Murmurs started. Confused, uncertain. Next slide. Organizational chart. Complex web of lines connecting companies, names in boxes, hierarchies clearly marked. This combine supplies raw materials to 6 regional contractors. Those contractors supply smaller firms. One of those firms is Vance Logistics. I highlighted a box on the chart, Vance Logistics, then highlighted another box 3 levels up, the combine. Oren Hale is employed as Junior Operations Manager at Vance Logistics. His mother, Marianne Hale, is Senior HR Director at Feldman Industrial Supply, a direct subsidiary of the combine. Both names highlighted now, connected by red lines to my position at the top. Marianne stood abruptly. This is inappropriate. You can't... Sit down, Mrs. Hale. My voice didn't rise, didn't change, but something in it made her freeze. She sat slowly, face crumbling. Next slide. Board meeting minutes. Dated Tuesday. Official letterhead. Vote recorded. 9 in favor. 0 opposed. Motion. Restructuring and personnel replacement. On Tuesday, the ownership committee voted unanimously to restructure subsidiary HR operations. As part of that restructuring, Mrs. Hale's position was eliminated. Effective Monday, she will no longer be employed by Feldman Industrial. The room erupted, voices overlapping. Shock. Disbelief. Marianne's face collapsed entirely. Tears spilled down her cheeks. Oren shot to his feet. You can't do this. This is revenge. This is business. Sit down. No. You're using your position to punish us for a joke, for a stupid comment at a wedding. I'm using my position to address operational inefficiency. The metrics support the decision. The vote was unanimous. Your mother's employment is not your concern. Your own position, however, should be. His face drained of all color. What? Next slide. Supply contract, Vance Logistics and Feldman Industrial. Renewal date, June 30th. Signature required. Ownership committee representative. Vance Logistics operates on a renewable contract. That contract expires in 6 weeks. Renewal requires my signature. I have not yet decided whether to sign. Oren staggered backward, grabbed the chair for support. Without that contract, Vance loses 38% of its material supply. Without material supply, Vance cannot fulfill existing commitments. Without fulfilled commitments, Vance terminates underperforming staff. Dad, Laura's voice cut through the chaos, quiet, broken. Dad, please, stop this. I looked at her. Really looked. Her eyes were red, tears streaming down her face. She looked younger suddenly, smaller. You stood beside him when he mocked me. You laughed at his jokes. You cashed my checks and introduced me as someone who works in metals. You erased me, made me invisible, made me irrelevant. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You didn't care. I was a wallet, a means to an end. And when he made me a public joke, you said nothing. She sobbed. Openly now, shoulders shaking. I felt nothing. Next slide. Final image. The wedding photo. Laura and Oren at the altar. Smiling, beautiful. Behind them, barely visible in the background, me, standing alone, out of focus. I paid for this moment. I funded this beginning. I asked for nothing in return except basic respect. I did not receive it. I closed the laptop. The screen went dark. Mrs. Hale, your termination letter will arrive Monday. I will not reverse that decision. Oren, your contract renewal depends entirely on your behavior moving forward. Laura, I have nothing more to say to you. Silence. Complete. Total. I unplugged my laptop, tucked it under my arm, walked toward the exit. Dad, wait. Laura's voice, desperate, pleading. I paused at the door, didn't turn around. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, please don't do this. I looked back one final time, at the room full of people who'd laughed, who'd smiled, who'd treated me like I didn't matter. At Oren, collapsed in his chair, head in his hands. At Marianne, weeping silently. At Laura, destroyed. And I felt it then. The thing I'd been waiting for, the thing I'd earned, satisfaction, pure, complete, absolute. I smiled, not a cruel smile, not vindictive, just satisfaction. The quiet pleasure of a job well done, of respect restored, of power revealed. Goodbye. I walked out into the cool evening air,